So now you've heard in this session there was a lot of data and quantitative analysis, and I'm a soft guy, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about the more qualitative testing. So have any one of you done a usability test before? Hands up. That's good, because now you can learn it. So this is about usability testing, and usability testing in its simplest way is to, as I said in there, it is to make a task for a website or a software system, and then have a user to try to accomplish that task and see how it goes. So that's a usability test. And we can use this a really simple method for everything from testing for hygiene, testing that we haven't done any stupid errors, any CAPTCHA things that people don't understand. And also, of course, usability testing has also been used for cockpits in airplanes, where it's kind of important that the pilots understand what the different buttons actually means. So there was some stories about airplanes having the button for stopping the engine of the plane, and the button for having the wheels going down at almost the same place, and it was kind of near a catastrophe for some incidents. You could also test for innovation to get, if you're building a new product that people are not used to, you could test it on users to understand more about what they think, and if there's features they want, etc. And you could also test to guide discussions or to stop discussions. In every project we have, there is always discussions if some kind of navigation works or do not work, and then we test it on users to understand, is this really a problem, or do we just think it's a problem? And to do usability testing in your products, in your projects, you have to sell it like you mean it. And for us in NetLife Research, it was a revolution when we started to not make it optional in our projects. So we said, okay, we have this development of an app or what it is, and beforehand we said option usability test, 50,000 kroner or so, but now we just put it in and say it's a part of the deal. So you have to test it, if else we won't do the project. That helps. So don't make it optional. And another thing you could do if you need to sell this to your supervisors or to the client you're working on, is to describe the objective and not the procedure. And by that I mean that if you put in a proposal, you put usability lab test with 5 people, nobody understands what it is, and nobody understands why they should pay for it. But if you say that we need an activity called quality assurance and testing, and we'll use the methods most suitable to test the usability at different stages of the process to make sure we get it right, then the people actually paying for this product would better understand that, we want to get it right, so this sounds like a sound activity to have. Another thing about usability testing is to scale down the documentation and not the testing. So this is in our company, we have 2 test labs where we have the project group in one room and the test subject in another room, and we have video so you can see everything happening in the test room. And then we have 20 to 30 minutes breaks between each test subject, so we can just do the documentation there. So you don't need to use 1 week to write the usability test report, etc. It's much better to just to scale down the documentation. So in NetLife Research, we use Slack as a communication channel. Do you use Slack? Anyone? Yeah. It's a nice tool. And for many usability tests, we have a Slack channel with our client, and then we just use Slack to note down every problem in the software or website we are testing. And during this presentation, I will mention different apps and tools you can use, and I will refer to a list of all them on the last slide. So this is InVision, and we often use InVision app when we test stuff. You can test early prototypes. You can just upload a sketch or a picture, and you can have it on the mobile and test it. And it's also quite good for making comments in the user interface. So while you're documenting, you can, instead of writing in a list, you can actually write where the problem was. If you saw a user didn't understand this table, you can just put a comment there that this table is not understandable. So that's InVision app. So, and the next principle is to scale down the prototype and not the testing. So often we wait too late with testing our digital services on users. The biggest problem is that either you don't test it on users at all, or you test it on users too late. So if you test the software that is going to be launched in 14 days, of course, you can't change much before you launch it. So you can start testing on paper prototypes. You can test on sketches, etc., and you can get feedback quite early. So this is a table of different prototyping tools. So actually, if you're just testing, if you want to test the wording, what should a menu label or what kind of words should we use in this application, then you can just use a paper sketch and sketch out the user interface and then ask people where would you click if you're going to do that and that. And actually people are quite good at imagining that this paper prototype is actually a digital user interface. So that's a way to do it. And from this very low fidelity text or paper sketches, you could test on wireframes, which is only digital sketches, or you can test on Photoshop sketches, of course. And you can put them in an InVision app or another tool to make it clickable. Yes, so you have a lot of different fidelities of the prototypes, but the moral of this is to start test what you're building as early as possible. So don't wait until you have the final product or the prototype in code up here. So this is some examples. This is the ugliest sketch we have ever tested, I guess. So it's just an ugly paper sketch, but we got a lot of good feedback from the users just by testing something that was really the text is it's almost not understandable. But and then we started making a design for this after we had tested it, and then we just used InVision app to get it on the mobile and make it clickable so that people could really test how it would work. So, but what you should never do is to compromise on testing with actual users. So your colleagues, you could of course get feedback from your colleagues, but they are probably super users and quite smart, and they know software development, etc. So they are probably not your normal users. So unless you're actually making an intranet or some internal application for your company, your colleagues are not your users. And designers are not your users. If you're not designing Dribble or some kind of tool for designers, if you're designing the new version of Photoshop, then designers are your users. And of course, developers are not your users unless you're designing GitHub or something like that. Then you could use developers as test subjects. But remember that just showing something to your colleague is not to do an actual test on users. And the interesting part about this usability testing method is that you don't need a lot of test subjects to get really good results. So there's a magic number 5 in the usability testing literature, because this is quite an old method. It was used early in the 80s, actually, the usability testing method. And Jakob Nielsen has done research on how many test users do you need to find all the problems in the usability problems in the software or in the website, etc. And what he found was that if you test on 5 persons, you can see that it's almost 85% of the problems found. And if you go further to test on 8 or 9 persons, you have almost all possible usability problems identified. So what he did was actually just to test on more and more and more and more persons and see, do I really learn something new from the 50th test person or the 70th test person? And he found out that if you're not Microsoft or if you don't have $1 million to do the usability testing, you could do it on 5 to 8 persons, and you would get really good results. So this is also important when people criticize you for you're just going to test on 5 persons that can't be statistical significant. So this is not a quantitative method, it's a qualitative method. So if you see that one user really has a really huge problem with finding a function or paying a bill in the online bank, of course you can't know if 100 persons out there will have the same problem. But then you have to evaluate, do I think that this would actually be a problem for more people? And probably it would. But the usability test will not tell you how widespread the problem is. So of course, a usability test is just one of quite a lot of different methods. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the different methods later, but usability test is kind of, it's towards the qualitative, but some use it also a little bit quantitative by counting the number of people that experience a problem, etc. So you have a lot of different methods used in our field of usability, but usability testing is one of the most important tools we use when we develop stuff. Yeah. So I'll go through 6 really low-cost and low-effort techniques for doing your own testing. So this is what I mean that you should do when you develop software. Are you all developers? How many are software developers? Yeah, almost all. And do you have something to say about the design and the user interface? you're probably coding it, but is it other people deciding how it should look and function, or could you also do something about that? Yeah? Okay, so most times you do only the code, yeah. But so this is, and if you're in that position, I think many companies, both in Norway and Sri Lanka, many software developing companies could add value to their services by saying that we do actually also test this on users, not only technical testing, but also the usability testing to find out if it really works. So if you're going to make a product yourself, or if you're going to add value to your services towards your clients, this is 6 low-cost, low-effort techniques. So the first one is hit the streets. And hit the streets, I mentioned earlier on today. It's the simplest way of doing a usability test. So it takes you 1 to 4 hours. So it's not a very expensive method. And the cost is probably only the snacks you give the participants of this test. So you bring a device. It could be a computer. It could be a iPad, it could be a mobile phone, and then you just hit the streets and you stop people and give them some snacks, and then you ask them to solve some tasks on the application you are making. It's really easy, and you should try it and see how much you can actually learn just by doing this with 5 to 8 people. And as I showed earlier, when we do this is Ida in our company, and this is the client. So Ida brought the client to this test so that he could also see what was wrong and what was good about the stuff we were making for them. And then it becomes much easier when we are going to discuss how should we change this application afterwards when he has seen it himself. So it's the easiest method, and it's chocolate, nuts, and bananas. Actually, no one took bananas. People would only have chocolate. So, and as Ida said, that it was smart to have bananas because then people thought, oh, okay, this is, I could choose the healthy alternative. So yes, I'll do this test. And then they took the test, and then they wanted to what is it called? They wanted to reward themselves afterwards. And when you're going to reward yourself, of course, you take the chocolate and not the banana. So also the people wanting the banana in front of the test, they actually took the chocolate afterwards. So the next thing is to test the information architecture. And the information architecture, every website and every software have some kind of information architecture. And I don't mean the technical information architecture here. I mean how you sort the different functions. Like you have one menu with save, and you have another menu with different other functions. And to test the information architecture, this is a method which is also very low cost. And you can do it really fast, 30 minutes and up. And you can use this tool called TreeJack, which has a free version, so you can use it. And as I said earlier, I will share a blog post with all these methods and tools afterwards, so you can look into it. So this tool, you set it up quite easily, and if you're thinking of making, for example, a website or an application for a telco company, and you want to test what should I name the different menu elements, and what should I put into the different categories. So you set up this. Where do you go to find the prices for surfing the web on your telephone? And then people you do the test online, so you share it on Facebook or somewhere else, and people do it online, and then they choose, and then afterwards you can do analysis of what works and what didn't work in this information architecture. So it's quite easy to set up, and it's really fast for testing if you use a understandable language in your application. The next thing you could do is something called a first click. And there's also a first click application, which has a free version, so it's not very expensive to do this. So you set it up. And you do it online, the survey, and the survey is you give people a task, and you see where do they click the first where do they do their first click on this when they are solving the task, and then you can do analysis afterwards of how the click patterns are in this application. And this looks like it's finished, but this is only sketches with clickable fields, so it's possible to click around here. So the next method you could use is the live experiments. And you probably know Google Analytics, and some of you have maybe used Hotjar or another tool for this. So if you're making a software or a website, you could make it available. If you can make it available online in a browser, Hotjar is a very nice tool to check how the reading patterns and how the clicking patterns are on the websites. So we wanted to test a really long article template for Plan International. We were making this website, and we had a discussion in the project. Do people really scroll this long article, or do they stop at the photo in the top? So we put out a live article. So it looks like it's a normal Facebook update, but actually the URL is Plan Norge Redesign protolife.no. So some would understand that this is not real, but most people don't understand it. So they just click on the article, and then via this tool Hotjar, we could measure if people really scroll down this long article, and we could see if people actually clicked the links down here with Google Analytics. So we put Google Analytics on it to see the clicks, and we used Hotjar to see how far would people scroll. And actually people really, they scrolled. People scroll. It's the first thing people do on websites, they scroll. So it was no problem that the article was long, as long as it had different elements, so that it was not 1 meter with text. Of course, that doesn't work that good. So as I said, we also used Google Analytics to track if people really clicked the links down there. So it almost didn't cost a thing to do this, only some hours, and it got really valuable feedback in the project. So the next thing is to measure if people feel that they get it done, that they get what they came for in the application or in the website. Did they get to do what they came for? And it's 15 minutes and up. It's free, or you can use a tool that Actually, this is a hidden commercial for Task Analytics, which is a tool that my company makes together with our Sri Lankan partner. Which is 99X Technologies making this. But the first tool is this. You see this on several web pages. That was this article helpful? Yes, no. And one of my colleagues, he made a tool he called it Feedback. So this is free, and if you want to integrate a field like did you find what you were looking for and have that on every page on a website, you could use his tool. So you just embed a script here and in the code, and this box comes up, and then you can analyze afterwards which pages actually works and which pages doesn't answer what the user came for, and then you can start fixing them. So this is an example for a Norwegian governmental site. So you can see over some weeks, the green one is the people saying, yes, I could do what I came for, or I got the answer to my question, and the red one is no. And after tweaking and tweaking and tweaking, you see that they are getting a little bit more green after a while. And so this is like a continuously working with answering what the user really came for. So, and if you use this a fantastic tool, Task Analytics, you could that's a survey-based system, so it comes up as a overlay, and it asks you what you came for, and then it asks you after you have used the website, it asks you, did you accomplish what you came for? Then you can measure this over time, and you can do the website or the application better. So this is from a Norwegian website for a municipality, and opening hours for the swimming pool was one of the most important tasks, and we see that 90% of the users coming to find these opening hours actually found them. So, and then of course we want that to be 99%, but that is kind of hard. 90 is quite good. So this has also a layout that a dashboard you can go into and look at. So, and most of you probably work in projects that are ongoing for months or years, I guess. And what we have done is that we have one day in the week where we do usability tests in NetLife on every ongoing project. So if you work in a company with different projects ongoing, you could say that every Wednesday we test. So every Wednesday we invite users into our company, and then we do usability tests. So you have, this is to make it a little bit more efficient, so you don't have to set it up for every time, and you know that Wednesday it's possible to test my project, what I'm building now, and it's a quite an easy way to do it. But then you have to reward subjects, and if you are going to have a usability lab, you have to set that up. So our labs are kind of fancy with the eye tracking equipment, etc. But you don't need a fancy lab. You don't need a lab at all. But if you need recordings, you could use a tool called Silverback for Mac, or Camtasia for Mac and PC, to record what is happening on the screen while the test is going on. So you can see where the user clicks and what they say, etc. You can record all that, so you can show it to somebody else if that is needed. And if you need an observation room, then you have one room for testing and one for observation, and then you can use GoToMeeting or Hangout or Skype, etc., just to make sure that other people can follow the usability tests. And if you're testing on mobile, you can either buy like a tool for filming the mobile, because we have found out that to screen capture the picture from every type of phone in the world is kind of hard. So, and we often want people to use their own phones when they come, so that they don't fickle around with the functionality on the phone. So that's why we use cameras to film the screen. And this is a kind of a very low-cost way to do phone testing. We call it hugging because it looks like you are hugging the computer. So you give this man some tasks where he's going to find something on a website or solve it, pay a bill in the mobile app of a bank. And then we say, hold it there so we can film it. And then he uses this phone as he would do in his daily life. And then we can film it with the camera on the Mac or the PC. So this is a really cheap way to do it. So, and if you want to set up a lab, you can test every Wednesday, as I said, and it should be one person responsible for moderating the test, giving the questions, etc. So if you are building this software application and you are doing the tests, it's kind of hard to be objective, and it's kind of hard not to help the user. So it could be smart to switch, so you get somebody on another project to test what you are building. And 4 test subjects each time is often enough for this kind of continuously testing every Wednesday. And people sign up to have their project tested, and you can then test multiple projects because you don't need an hour for each project, so you can test multiple projects. So this is people at our offices noting down and observing the usability test on those screens. So this is the methods: hit the streets, the information architecture, first click, live experiments, did you get it done, and weekly drop-in lab test. And my, as I said, my colleague have written this nice article. It's called Low Budget, Low Effort Tools for User Testing, where you can get links to all the tools if you want to start yourself. So this is the Envision app, etc. It's you can have a look at it, and I also have a reference here in this presentation. But before I give the reference, I wanted to have a small, don't leave now, I want to have a small practical exercise. It's not scary. Or I hope it's not scary. So I use banking as an example. So I want every one of you to take 4 minutes and just write down, if you have pen and paper, or you can write it on your mobile, just write down 2 things that you think is typical user tasks for a banking website. And I mean a banking website for private persons, not for companies. So what do you think non-customers of a bank would look for when they come to a banking website? So now don't talk to your neighbor, just write it down yourself, and write down 2 user tasks. 2 things that you think customers of a bank would want to find on a website. And try to make it realistic and don't give any hints. And just to say, by realistic, I mean that when you start doing usability tests, it's kind of easy to make tasks like what would you do if you want to click on the contact button? And that's not a good user task, because then you say what the solution is to the user. So then it's better to say what would you do if you want to contact the bank, for example. So make it as realistic as possible. Was it understandable, or? Yeah. So, any suggestions? What would a normal person want to do at a banking website, do you think? Any suggestions? Yeah.
No interest rates for their saving accounts or fixed deposits?
Yeah, find interest rates for a saving account. That's a task. And that's something you can use, and you could give that to a user and see, is it possible or is it easy to find that at this bank? Yes? Yeah, calculate the loan. Yeah, and if you say find the loan calculator, then people in a kind of, because it could be a stressed situation, then people would look for something called a calculator. So it could be better to say, what if you want to know how expensive or cheap a loan in this bank is? What would you do? And then it's more like it's more open, the question then. So, but of course somebody would just think that, okay, this bank must have a calculator and they're looking for it. But it's often better to give a little bit more open questions. Okay, this is good. I think you got the task. So then you have to do your first usability test on your neighbor. So, and we are testing, you have to get your mobile phones out, and you have data traffic on them. If I use the mobile data traffic on my phone, I think it cost me like $7 per megabyte or something like that here. So I have to turn it off. I have turned it off. So then you have two and two. Is that okay? You just pair yourself with another man or girl. Yeah, and you have to be with him, or have to. That was not a threat. So if you get together 2 and 2, and then you just start with. You don't need to start with finding the website. You can just say that you can give the task and say that the bank you're going to test here is HNB, for example. And then the people would start at Google or something, but that is kind of interesting too, to see what's the journey into the HNB website. So let us start with HNB and give the task to your neighbor and just note down the problems you see when he or she solves the task, okay? We do this for 5 minutes. Okay, and sorry, I forgot one thing. To understand how your experience is, it's important that you, as a test subject, the person trying to find stuff on the website, tries to speak aloud or think aloud, sorry, and say what I feel the problems are when I try to find stuff. So, yeah, just do it. Okay. Was that enough time, or was the tasks kind of hard to solve? I think we just stop there, and then so did many of you come to this page, or did you come to another one? Another one, yeah. So you came directly to the corporate website, maybe. Yeah, you came to this, the mobile version of this. So any comments? Did you find, was the website perfect, or did you find any usability problems? Anyone? Yes, any suggestions for some problems with HNB? It's kind of responsive. Kind of. Yeah, anyone? Any problems? Scrolling issue? What was the scrolling issue? Yeah. Okay, yes. So that's an issue. Yeah, it's good. Anyone else found any problems with HNB? Yeah? Okay, yeah, interesting. So this is, the interesting part about usability testing is that when you see things like that, it's, what the fuck? Why is it like that? And you actually, and you have used 1 minute or 2 minutes to find out that this is a problem, and then you can go and be embarrassed and actually fix it. So yeah, that's good. Anyone else?
I asked to find the loan rates, but he couldn't find the
You asked to find the
loan rates.
The loan rates, yeah, and it was hard to find the loan rates. He couldn't? No. Then it's not allowed to say that he's stupid. That's also a part of the usability test. The user is always right. So if he can't find the loan rates, they ain't there. Yeah. So if your customers can't find the loan rates, you won't sell any loans. So it won't work. Okay, we have time for another small exercise, and it's the same, but you now switch roles so that the other person could also do this. And now you use the same tasks, but for MDB Bank. So you switch roles, so now it's the other person that is navigating. Okay. How was that? Did you find any problems with this site? Anyone? Not mobile friendly, yeah. So, and what kind of problems did you or she experience? Yeah, and how did it feel then to navigate it? Yeah, yeah. So it's not mobile friendly, and often if you say that to a company that okay, you don't have a responsive website or responsive web app, they don't really understand it before they have seen somebody actually trying to buy a product or so on a phone on their website. Then they can really understand what the problems are about. Yeah, somebody else with a yes?
They have included the loan calculator, but they didn't include the interest rate to the loan calculator. We have to get this somewhere else and put it to the interest rate and calculate the loan.
Aha, yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting way to do it. Yes. So there's some potential here for making it better. This and how did you feel when you were the one trying to find things? Was it stressful, or did you feel like it was a kind of a competition to try to find it? So, and that's why it's important when, if you're going to do usability tests, it's important to tell people that it's not, you are not the one being tested. It's the website or application that is tested. It's not you as a person, because yeah, it could be actually kind of stressful. But now you have felt some of the stress, so then it's probably easier for you to do it with somebody else and try to make them calm, etc. Any other comments about the testing? Yeah, too many options. Yes. And did you experience that in the testing, or? Yes. Yeah. So, and what you could then see is that people use a lot of time to try to find out, and you could get kind of a paradox of choice that you don't bother, you call them, and every telephone call to a bank is quite expensive for them because then they have to talk to you for a long while, etc. So that's true, it's too many options. But you have this great thing up here then. What is it? It's an app. So instead of doing their website mobile friendly, they build an app. So that's kind of normal procedure. Instead of fixing what you have, you build something new. Sorry about that. Do anyone of you work for NDB, or you? Cool. You can fix it. Yeah. I've been in meetings with them too, so I'm going to tell them that they were mocked in this session. So, as I said, I would give you the, you can find all the resources at this URL. It's as I said, my colleague Ida, who has written the blog post about the different methods for testing the usability of a user interface. So any questions or comments? I think after being here sometimes, I think Sri Lankans and Norwegians are kind of similar. If you go to the US and give a presentation, people are queuing up to ask you questions afterwards. But in Norway and Sri Lanka, it's quite kind of seldom that people ask questions. So it's the same. We have a conference in Oslo and we have 1,000 participants and no questions. or quite seldom questions. And I think at US conferences, many of the people asking questions, they don't really ask a question. They try to tell how smart they are. So it's more like a sales pitch than a real question. Yeah, after that, any questions, comments? You are ready to do your first usability tests? Yeah, and then just do it in an easy way. Take the software or what you're working on and just have somebody in the user group trying to use it. And even, I know if you're working for Norwegian or software, if you're making software for companies in Norway or other countries, many of those companies, they never test it on users. So if you suggest that many of them would say, oh, we haven't done that before. So just try and convince them to do it to make better products for them. Yes, thank you.